Guardians of AsunDur is a cooperative board game for 1 to 6 players, where each player takes on the role of one or more guardian angels seeking to restore virtue in a world torn asunder by vice. To win, the players must increase the value of the virtue track to a level of 7 before the forces of darkness do the same thing along the vice track. The game world is broken into 20 regions, each showing an iconic representation of the mental, physical, and spiritual virtues found there. During the game, the forces of vice will try to block these virtues by placing a virtue blocker over the corresponding virtue icon. When all 3 virtues are covered, the region is fully corrupted. If any more blockers are added to that region, the region becomes a dark stronghold. This advances the vice track by 1. Dark strongholds may also get added to the game world if you draw a dark stronghold card from the play deck during the draw phase. In that case, you would roll the dice to determine where to place the dark stronghold. We'll talk more about game phases and rolled regions in a little bit. Also, a dark presence card may be drawn during the draw phase. If this happens, you roll to see which region receives the dark presence. Every time a dark presence enters the world, the vice track is advanced by however many dark presences are already in the world, so it's a good idea to vanquish dark presences as soon as you can. There are always 6 guardian angels in the game, so depending on how many players you have, each player may take on the role of 1 or more guardian angels. These guardians may use virtue points to perform actions during the action phase. Virtue points come in 3 colors: red for spiritual, green for physical, and blue for mental. These virtue points can take on 3 different forms: personal, card, and gem. Each guardian has 2 personal virtue points, which may or may not be the same color. These virtue points are never depleted. Guardians may also possess virtue points in the form of virtue cards and virtue gems. Regardless of the forms the virtue points take, they can be combined to make virtue pairs and virtue sets. A virtue pair is comprised of virtue points of the same color. A virtue set is comprised of one of each of the 3 colored virtue points. I'll explain how virtue pairs and virtue sets are used a little later. First, I want to talk about game turns, phases, and rounds. Each guardian takes 1 turn per round. Each player may take more than 1 turn per round depending on how many guardians they're controlling. At the start of the game, the players determine the order in which the guardians take their turns. Then they place their corresponding discs on the turn track in the upper position, in that order. When it's a specific guardian's turn, their corresponding disc is slid down to the lower position. This way, it's always easy to tell which guardian's turn it is, regardless of how many players there are or where they're sitting around the table. During the guardian's turn, there are 4 phases: the move phase, the action phase, the card phase, and the vice phase. During the move phase, the guardian may move to any region on the board. However, on their first turn, each guardian is up in the heavens, so they must move to a region on that turn. On all subsequent turns, a guardian may decide to move or may decide not to move to a new region. If a guardian does move during the move phase, they may only perform 1 action during the turn's action phase. If the guardian doesn't move and stays in their current region, they may perform as many actions as they can during their action phase, so long as each action is successful. Whatever region a guardian is in at the end of the move phase is considered its current region. During the action phase, a guardian may have a number of actions to choose from. All actions must take place within the guardian's current region. Many actions involve the use of virtue points in the form of virtue pairs and virtue sets. Each virtue set can do one of the following: vanquish a dark presence, remove a dark stronghold, or build a light stronghold. Each virtue pair can remove a virtue blocker of the same corresponding color. Some of the light cards may also be used as an action during the action phase. A guardian may also gift or receive a gift of a card or gem from another guardian if they are together in the same region. This may only be done 1 time in 1 direction per action phase. Lastly, a guardian may choose to roll for a gem. To roll for a gem, the guardian declares the color being rolled for and rolls all 3 dice. If the highest rolled die is the declared color, the roll is successful and the guardian acquires that colored gem. If there is a tie for the highest roll, re-roll only the dice involved with the tie, ignoring the value of the unrolled die, if any. If the roll is unsuccessful, the Guardian may not perform any more actions that action phase, even if they hadn't moved that turn. During the card phase, the player draws a card from the playdeck. The playdeck is comprised of 14 virtue cards, 5 light cards, and a number of dark presence and dark stronghold cards as determined by the difficulty level being played. If a virtue card is drawn, it belongs to that Guardian until it is either used or gifted to another Guardian. A virtue card may be used as one virtue point of a chosen color. The colors that may be chosen are indicated on the card. If a light card is drawn, it also belongs to that Guardian until it is either used or gifted to another Guardian. Each light card has a special use, which is written on the card itself. After any card is used, it must be discarded. The playdeck also has 2 kinds of dark cards, both of which work against the efforts of the players. If a dark stronghold card is drawn, the current player rolls the dice to see where the dark stronghold is to be built. The sum of the 3 dice is the rolled region. If there's already a light stronghold on that region, the light stronghold prevents the dark stronghold from being built, but is also removed in the process. The virtue track does not go down, however. If there is not a light stronghold, a dark stronghold is built in that region, and the vice track is advanced by 1. If ever a dark stronghold needs to be built on a region where there is already a dark stronghold, it overflows into the adjacent 4 regions. This may cause a chain reaction of dark strongholds being built. The vice track is still only advanced by 1, regardless of how many dark strongholds are built during this overflow. If, however, a dark stronghold needs to be built and there are not enough virtue blockers to do so, the game is immediately lost. If a dark presence card is drawn, the current player rolls the dice to determine the rolled region to see where the dark presence is to be placed. The vice track is advanced by however many dark presences were already in the world. When a dark presence is in a region, no restoration can take place there until the dark presence is vanquished. And finally, during the vice phase, the current player makes a vice roll. To make a vice roll, the player rolls all 3 dice to determine both the colors and location of the virtue blockers to be placed. The color of the die with the highest value is the color of the virtue blocker to be placed into the rolled region. If there's a tie for the highest rolled color, all the highest rolled colored blockers are to be placed. It's possible to have either 1, 2, or 3 virtue blockers placed with a single vice roll. Whenever a region ever has all 3 virtues blocked with virtue blockers, the region is considered to be fully corrupted. If the rolled region is not already fully corrupted and the virtue blocker to be placed is already present in that region, the matching blocker is not placed, but rather remains in the virtue blocker pool. If the rolled region is already fully corrupted before the vice roll, a dark stronghold is built on the rolled region, and the vice track is advanced by 1. It is possible for a vice roll to cause an overflow. After the vice phase, play passes to the next Guardian on the turn tracker, who may or may not be controlled by the same player. It's now that Guardian's turn, and they start off in their movement phase. When all Guardians have taken a turn, it's the end of that round, and play passes back to the first Guardian on the turn tracker. Play continues until either the players win or lose the game. Now that we've gone over the basics of the rules, it's time to set up the game. First, we decide on a difficulty level. There are 3 difficulty levels to choose from. For the purpose of this demonstration, we'll select the normal difficulty. This means we'll start off the game with 5 initial vice rolls and shuffle into the playdeck 5 dark stronghold cards and 10 dark presence cards. The number of players you have will determine how many guardian angels each player will control. The game supports 1 to 6 players. For each guardian angel, the controlling player takes the guardian's character card and matching virtue gems, as well as the guardian's character pawn. After the players determine the turn order, the guardian's turn tracker disc is placed at the top of the turn tracker in the desired order. The players then place the blocker pool, gem pool, stronghold bars, and dark presence pawns within easy reach of all players. Now it's time to create the playdeck. It's important that the cards in the playdeck be both random and yet fairly evenly distributed throughout the deck. To do this, you'll create subdecks equal to the number of dark stronghold cards in your chosen difficulty level. In each subdeck, there will be 1 dark stronghold and 2 dark presence cards. Then, as evenly as you can, distribute the light cards and the virtue cards into the subdecks. Shuffle each subdeck, and then randomly pile each subdeck on top of each other without further shuffling. Finally, we need to make the initial Vice rolls. The number of initial Vice rolls is dependent on the difficulty level chosen. These Vice rolls are carried out in the same way as you would during the Vice phase discussed earlier, with the one exception that if any region is rolled more than once during this process, re-roll until an uncorrupted region is rolled. You are now ready to begin play.